Chapter 53. Amalek. Exodus chapter 17, verses 8 to 16. Then came Amalek and fought with Israel in Rephidim. And Moses said unto Joshua, Choose us out men, and go out, fight with Amalek. Tomorrow I will stand on the top of the hill with the rod of God in mine hand. So Joshua did as Moses had said unto him, and fought with Amalek, and Moses, Aaron, and Hur went up to the top of the hill. And it came to pass, when Moses held up his hand, that Israel prevailed, and when he let down his hand, Amalek prevailed. But Moses' hands were heavy, and they took a stone and put it under him, and he sat thereon, and Aaron and Hur stayed up his hands, the one on the one side, and the other on the other side, and his hands were steadily until the going down of the sun. And Joshua discomfited Amalek and his people with the edge of the sword. And the Lord said unto Moses, Write this for a memorial in a book, and rehearse it in the ears of Joshua, for I will utterly put out the remembrance of Amalek from under heaven. And Moses built an altar and called the name of it Jehovah Nissi, the Lord my banner. For he said, Because the Lord hath sworn that the Lord will have war with Amalek from generation to generation. Exodus chapter 17, verses 8 to 16. The 5 books of Moses, Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy, give us the alphabet of theology. They provide us with the essential elements of the doctrines of God and man, of sin and salvation, and of the ways of God with man. This may be one reason for their neglect. They go against the grain with most people. Men, both the godly and the ungodly, want a final order now. They hunger for instant utopia, especially in the era since the French Revolution. Politics too often becomes an effort to gain utopia now. They want, in Thomas Boston's phrase, to leap out of Delilah's lap into Abraham's bosom. Together with this effort to gain utopia now goes an inability to recognize what man is, both other men and ourselves. We believe ourselves to be better than we are, which means belittling God's grace in us and to us, and we often fail to admit the evil in other men. Perhaps this is the reason for the indifference to knowledge about Amalek. Moses, in Deuteronomy chapter 25, verses 17 to 19, reminds Israel that they must remember Amalek. Remember what Amalek did unto thee by the way, when ye were come forth out of Egypt. How he met thee by the way, and smote the hindmost of thee, even all that were feeble behind thee, when thou wast faint and weary, and he feared not God. Therefore it shall be, when the Lord thy God hath given thee rest from all enemies round about, in the land which the Lord thy God giveth thee for an inheritance to possess it, that thou shalt blot out the remembrance of Amalek from under heaven. Thou shalt not forget it. In Numbers chapter 24, verse 20, we see that Balaam described Amalek as the first of the nations, but his latter end shall be that he perish forever. This troubles many, and so we try to read it as meaning that Amalek was the first to attack Israel. The word first is in the Hebrew, reshith, and refers to primacy, headship, or rank. Because we do not know more about Amalek does not mean that this nation was not important in its day. According to Velikovsky, the Amalekites were the Hyksos, known to Egypt as a people who undertook to destroy the whole world. They took a delight in evil, according to many references, and, according to Moses, first attacked the weak, straggling members of Israel who had not yet reached Rephidim. because the plagues had weakened Egypt. Velikovsky said Amalek rushed towards Egypt and conquered and occupied it for some time as the Hyksos rulers. According to Genesis chapter 36, verse 12, the Amalekites were descendants of Esau, Jacob's brother. The Ephraimite, Joshua, the son of Nun, appears here for the first time as Israel's military leader. The name Jesus is a form of Joshua. It means Jehovah saves. Hur was apparently the grandfather of Bezalel, mentioned in Exodus chapter 31, verse 2, as an artisan. According to Josephus, Hur was a husband of Moses' sister Miriam. In verse 18, we are told that God required Moses to record this battle with Amalek and to rehearse it in the ears of Joshua. This seems strange since Joshua was in the battle, until we realize that Joshua was not asked simply to remember the action, but also the meaning of Amalek and God's perpetual war against it. Ancient Jewish records ascribe particularly brutal acts to Amalek, combined with a deliberate contempt for God. As we have seen, men are unwilling to face the evil in all men, and they are also unwilling to face up to their dependence on God. God's requirement in this instance stresses human action combined with dependence on Him. Joshua and his men fight against Amalek. Moses must raise his hands and staff in supplication to God. When his hands weakened, Israel began to lose. The point is an obvious one. As we face our battles and problems, we must indeed take action, but we must be equally untiring in our dependence on God. The raised staff was a witness and a remembrance of God's previous miraculous judgments, and it invoked God's continuing care. Verse 8 begins, Then came Amalek. The rabbis of old said that this was a consequence of Israel's grumbling about God. They held that whenever Israel began to complain about God or to doubt Him, He sent them something like Amalek to humble them. According to Delitzsch, in Amalek, the heathen worlds would commence that conflict with the people of God, which, while it aims at their destruction, can only be terminated by the complete annihilation of the ungodly powers of the world. This conquest is a part of the Great Commission, the requirement to convert and to teach all nations. At times in history, as with Amalek, it means actual warfare. According to verse 15, after the battle, Moses built an altar and named it Jehovah Nissi, the Lord my banner. This means that the Lord Himself is the standard or banner under which Israel fought. According to many scholars, verse 16 is obscure in meaning. According to George Rawlinson, the marginal reading is the correct translation. Because the hand of Amalek is against the throne of the Lord, therefore the Lord will have war with Amalek from generation to generation. Rawlinson commented, The Hebrew can scarcely be said to be obscure. It gives plainly enough the sense which our translators have placed in the margin. Amalek, by attacking Israel, had lifted up his hand against the throne of God. Therefore, would not God war against him from generation to generation? In verse 14, we see that God commanded Moses, Write this for a memorial in a book. In Hebrew, it is literally the book. Thus, Moses was keeping a record at God's requirement to record Amalek's evil and God's hatred of Amalek. The recording of history was thus God's mandate. This raises a very important point. Apart from the biblical world of faith, the writing of history is to all practical intent non-existent. We do have a number of pagan chronicles, but there is a difference between chronicle and history. A chronicle simply lists names and events. It is sometimes no more than a series of dynastic tables. Some pagan writers like Herodotus are called historians, but their purpose differs from history. Such men list curious customs and events. Others will give us purported history with idealized accounts and invented speeches given to notable men. Such books can be source books for history, but are not themselves history. History writing gives us an account of events in terms of their meaning and purpose. Since neither the persons nor the nations involved are the goal of history, true history is critical in terms of an overall meaning which transcends man. Christianity and the Bible have made possible a non-Christian historiography, but the results are troublesome. Marxist history sees the meaning of events in terms of a class struggle, but the world of borrowed meaning is a problem. Because Marxism presupposes the world of Darwin and evolution, a purely historically derived meaning wanes rapidly. The meaning of history cannot be sustained from within history itself, but only by God. The command to Moses is, "Write this for a memorial in the book." The Hebrew word for memorial can mean what our English word says, and also record. Many religions, such as Hinduism, despise time and history in favor of things more spiritual. It should be apparent thus far in Exodus alone how different Scripture is. God commands an historical memory, and the Bible is the great historical record. Failure to stress the historical character and interest of biblical faith is to depart from it. Some very quote-unquote spiritual people are appalled by God's attitude toward Amalek and regard it as an example of Old Testament primitivism. Such people are unwilling to recognize essential moral conflicts because the unity of all being is more important to them than truth and justice. This text tells us that God will have war with Amalek from generation to generation. Verse 16. Humanism is not happy with this because, for humanism, man is good, hence God is not. Especially if God judges and punishes men.